Gamers aren't happy. Not only is the Nintendo Switch 2 astronomically priced, but the games themselves are an absolute wallet burner, putting it nicely. And it's only set to get worse, following the tariffs imposed across several important countries associated with the manufacturing of Nintendo's latest hardware, namely Cambodia and Vietnam. But to add to this fury, FromSoftware has announced an upcoming original experience titled The Duskbloods. To nearly everyone's dismay, it's not a Bloodborne sequel, and as if things could only get worse, it's conceptually designed around 8-player PvPvE multiplayer. Oh, and it's a Switch 2 exclusive. Before we go crazy, let's take a step back. Let's reassess real quick and try to come to grips with what we just saw and what we know about the Duskbloods. Jumping to conclusions and automatically calling it into question merely on the premise of it being multiplayer focused, even with the great Hidetaka Miyazaki at the helm, is not the finest approach, especially for a developer we all hold so dear. You might not even know it yet, but the Duskbloods could be one of the best games to launch in 2026. It's already set to be another Miyazaki hellscape, and here's why I can't wait to dive in. First, I wanted to take a quick peek at Miyazaki's recent interview that released yesterday. It'll help us garner a baseline of information on this new title and understand what exactly the Duskbloods brings to the table, including its PvPvE elements, its themes, and how Hidetaka Miyazaki approached the creation of its world. One of the very first things Miyazaki says is that the concept itself was different from anything we had done before, and Nintendo seemed very interested in helping make it a reality. It would eventually balloon into a Switch 2 title, as Miyazaki describes, requiring FromSoft to revamp our development path with this new hardware in mind. Could you imagine? Could you imagine this thing on the original Switch? That would be one painful experience, and not in the good way, not in the good way. It's interesting that Miyazaki notes here that the Switch 2 has a focus on online features. It is, after all, detailed to have Wi-Fi 6 capabilities, which should help with multiplayer services, but that doesn't account for FromSoftware's shoddy netcode, nor Nintendo's poor online services to begin with. But we'll see. To the detriment of many a FromSoftware fan, Miyazaki describes the game as an online multiplayer-focused game, with both player versus player and player versus enemy gameplay. He adds that he always found the PvPvE structure very interesting, as it allows for a broad range of game design ideas while also letting us leverage our experience of designing challenging enemy encounters. Let's stop here for a second. There's some confusion over this, as while Dark Souls and Elden Ring have multiplayer elements, they are entirely optional. PvPvE in this context relates to something like New World, Call of Duty's DMZ mode, or Escape from Tarkov, which Miyazaki was quoted as playing fairly recently. The best examples we have of this type of game right now are extraction shooters with a broad focus, primary focus, on survival and resource gathering. But let's take a look at gameplay. Veering from these titles, though, the Duskbloods will focus on 8-player online matches in varied maps that are Gothic and Victorian inspired, as well as some depicting the closing years of the early modern period, like the one glimpsed in the trailer with the train running through it. Like Elden Ring and Bloodborne before it, there will be a hub world or hub area where players can choose their character, customize them, and enter online multiplayer. Miyazaki says there are over a dozen characters for the player to choose from, each with their own identity and appearance. Playable characters, otherwise known as Blood Sworn, can be customized to a certain extent, allowing players the fun of building a character that feels like their own. That's quite the deviation from Night Rain. You'll gain upgrades and rewards whether you win or lose in online matches, with better rewards being granted the better you do, and more you do. Miyazaki states that while victory in matches is generally last player standing, sometimes victory conditions differ, wherein you might be tasked with teaming up to take down a powerful boss enemy or find yourself in other special circumstances. Thus, victory, or narratively attaining the first blood, in Duskbloods isn't always influenced by PvP results, as PvE can also be just as important, which makes sense. He elaborates on this, saying, regardless of whether it's PvP or PvE, The idea is to provide players with an experience that allows them to learn and hone their skills as they play. We've therefore designed the PvE boss encounters to present a tough challenge and a sense of accomplishment upon defeating them, which sounds pretty much identical to that of Dark Souls or Elden Ring in a way, just with an added layer of player-on-player action. There are also match variables as a way to ensure the game doesn't become too stoic. An example of match variables is the event system, which entails something like a random encounter with a special enemy spawn or additional objectives with bonus rewards. Miyazaki points to the Yoko Taro look-alike moon in the sky as an example, citing it as one event that affects the environment and changes match rewards, which can have an immediate impact on player motivations and objectives. This sort of reminds me of World Tendency from Demon's Souls, but implemented a bit differently. So a general gameplay loop in Duskbloods might look vastly different depending on a variety of things, like the map, your playable character, random events, and even the roles you choose before each match. Miyazaki explains roles as special responsibilities and objectives that often lead to unique interactions and relationships between players based on their corresponding roles. Think of these sort of like covenants. He gives one example as destined rivals, which kind of reminds me of the PvP covenants in Dark Souls, similar to the Dark Wraiths. If you have the destined rivals role, you and another player will be designated as rivals, with the incentive of defeating each other. Another example is Destined Companion, where one player is required to seek out another designated as their companion, which results in a special reward if they form a bond with one another. Sunbros, anyone? You can assign these roles to any character via blood customization in the hub area, allowing you to enjoy role-playing in a literal sense and hopefully adding to the drama of these engagements, he says. Rules are separate from the overall victory conditions, Miyazaki says, and are explicitly tied to personal goals, which I'm going to assume will lead to special rewards as well as victory points. Victory points are what the souls, runes, or blood echoes of Duskbloods are called. Miyazaki describes victory points as being obtainable via direct combat and more opportunistic behavior. He adds that how you earn points is entirely up to you. This lends credence to Miyazaki's words on making the game satisfying even for players like me, as he is not much of a PvP person. All these fans bemoaning the multiplayer aspect of this game really need to just stop and wait to see more of the game. There's still so much we don't know about it, so everyone getting so worked up is just counterintuitive. It's funny because, I think a lot of the people that aren't hyped for Night Rain might actually enjoy Duskbloods a lot more, largely because of its pseudo RPG elements, like broader customizations for players. Miyazaki describes player customization in Duskbloods as blood history and fate, which directly corresponds to the game's underlying themes and narrative surrounding vampires. Miyazaki says that analyzing and altering a character's blood history and fate allows players to customize all sorts of things, from their abilities, appearance, and inner characteristics to the role they play in the world in relationship with other characters. As already mentioned, playable characters in Duskbloods are called Bloodsworn, owing to the game's namesake. Important tidbit is that Duskbloods collectively refers to all the Bloodsworn, who are functionally vampires, but not quite. Miyazaki says the Bloodsworn are a group whose members have achieved superhuman abilities through the power of special blood. Literally, Bloodborne meets Castlevania. Narratively, these Bloodsworn are out to obtain the first blood, which rears its head amidst a catastrophic event known as the Twilight of Humanity. Think of this like the Hunt from Bloodborne or the Cycle of Fire and Dark of Dark Souls fame. Miyazaki states the Bloodsworn are summoned to the Twilight of Humanity across a variety of different times and places in a bid to obtain first blood. Note that he doesn't say he says to obtain first blood. I'm curious what first blood could be referring to. I'm of the mind that it's a title, much less any physical thing or item. Think something like Dracula as being potentially the first blood, almost like the god of vampires, but Maybe Vadi has a better take on this than me. Obviously, the game draws striking similarities to Bloodborne, and that's largely due to the fact that blood is referenced quite a bit. Vampires, duh, you know. But beyond just the nature of vampires being a primary focus, Miyazaki explains that blood symbolizes one of the game's key themes: the history it holds, the power it passes on, the fates it weaves, and the marker of those who have surpassed the limitations of their humanity. So thinking in Dark Souls lore, blood in this case might draw similarities to the flame in those games. First flame, first blood, huh? In Dark Souls, we know that the furtive pygmy discovered the Dark Soul, a unique Lord Soul tied directly to the Abyss, one that he would later fragment onto the rest of his descendants. There could be something similar going on here, where the first blood is a type of title or kinship related to ancestral bloodsworn, or is simply a power that's granted for generating unimaginable amounts of bloodlust. It's hard to say. Miyazaki does state that these player customizations, or blood history and fate, will hold the keys to the lore of Duskbloods. Customizing a character will reveal a piece of information regarding the world and its unfolding story. There's a great book I read many years ago, that this reminds me of, called Bloodlines by Kate Carey. It's an unofficial sequel to Bram Stoker's Dracula that, as you might assume from the name, flows into the next generation of Dracula's kin. It takes an interesting perspective set in the midst of World War I. I don't doubt there might be elements of this in Duskbloods of some kind, much like there are obvious references here to Vampire Hunter D, Van Helsing, Castlevania, all of which I'll touch on later. Ancestry and bloodlines might play a pivotal role in this game. It's hard to say at this time just like how important that might be, in relation to the actual gameplay in Duskbloods, but I'm already fired up to learn more about its underlying premise and discover for myself what might be at the heart of the First Blood and the Blood Sworn writ large. So, taking all of this into account, let's dive into the trailer. Let's take a peek at that trailer real quick. Let's see if we can kind of spot some stuff that we might not have seen before and uncover the secrets of the First Blood. I'm going to be pausing every 3,000 years, probably, so get ready for that. Well, of course I already fucked it up. So he's kind of in the same position as Melania, as Lady Mariah, that we've seen them before, which I love. I love this visual imagery of them, and especially Moonlight, Moonlight, vampires, gothic imagery. We already know it, right? But I think it's pretty obvious that this is a Bloodsworn, a playable character that we'll be playing with. There's a lot of different Bloodsworn, because again, Miyazaki said there are 12 right? A dozen, he said, total so far. I'm sure there'll be more added, after the game comes out. But yeah, so I'm assuming this is a Bloodsworn, not necessarily a boss or anything, but it's also kind of cool. The white hair, the imagery that we get. You don't even see the woman yet, but we'll get to that in a second. But wonder what's on these pages. I'm sure there's a lot with it we can even dive into further, but let's just see. I want to hear this dialogue.
I give you my blood.
I give you my blood. This kind of goes into those Castlevania things, the elements that I see of Vampire Hunter D even, right? So Vampire Hunter D, if you didn't know, Vampire Hunter D is a Dhampir. He's a half vampire, half human hybrid. I don't know if that's necessarily what's going on, but it could be, or maybe there's an element of the fact that we're a second generation vampire. We're a fake vampire in that we've been bitten and we weren't necessarily born into vampirism, right? There's always this fight against true vampires and the fake ones. So I'm curious if there's going to be an element of that. I know, again, Bloodsworn aren't necessarily vampires, but they're vampires. Come on. Anyway, owing to that, right? Owing to this idea of being a second generation vampire being bitten, and in our search for the first blood, kind of makes sense, right? If you think about it, right? Anyway, let's continue.
I give you my life. Turn, O wheel, and transport him to a night of moonlight.
O wheel, turn, right? Turn, O wheel, and transport him to a night of moonlight. She goes on.
To humanity's very dusk.
Boom. AKA the twilight of humanity, perhaps. That's kind of what I'm thinking, right? That she's talking about the the twilight of humanity. This could be, I don't want to say the opening scene, but maybe this is maybe the starting scene for this Duskblood, or this Bloodsworn. I'm gonna be messing that up a lot. This Bloodsworn character when you enter a match. Does that make sense? Might sound crazy, but that's kind of what I'm gathering, maybe. Yeah, this could be like the starting narrative or starting cutscene that you get when you pick this character, this Bloodsworn. Also, I'm gonna bring it up later. But the wheel here, on the hand, we see a couple of these kind of insignias, these drawings on people's hands. So I'm curious if that's to do with the bloodline, the fate thing that Miyazaki was talking about, the player customizations. Yeah, I think it's kind of interesting. Yeah, there's a lot to see. There's a lot to get here. Anyway, let's continue. So, I mean, visuals are incredible, fantastic even. That's like just like we can clearly see that this is a FromSoft game. This has got that level, this chutzpah, right? This level of detail that few other game developers can match. I thought it's funny that we go from Victorian era, Bloodborne like map. We go to a Victorian era Bloodborne map to Armored Core Train Depot. And honestly, like, how could you not be excited for this game? How could you not be excited for this? It just looks incredible. This looks so good. Polished. But, anyway. I'm gonna be pausing almost every frame. But I wanted to stop here and take a peek at this stained glass window. First of all, broken window here. Kind of cool. Probably, I don't know if that has anything to do with like traversal. Maybe we can maybe we get in there somehow. Get in here via here. That's probably where we enter. Anyway, yeah, it's probably one of the ways we enter. But besides the point, I wanted to take a quick peek at this imagery. I even took a screenshot because I wanted to zoom in. So if we zoom in, right, we get this guy holding a cup up to like an angel demon like figure. Obviously probably a vampire that's turned, or the first blood maybe. Or Dracula. That could be even Dracula. I'm curious if even Dracula will be mentioned in this game. Yeah, but my thinking is that this is maybe a sacrifice of some kind, a tribute maybe this is like kind of how you take up the first blood, right? He's offering up his blood maybe to become a Bloodsworn, right? I think it kind of makes sense. Or this could even be the first blood offering, right? Like a tribute. Maybe the ritual itself to become the first blood, to take the title. of the First Blood mantle. Yeah, there's a lot that could be said about this, right? Yeah, and then you got these other people, these other peons here looking on. And then you scroll down, there's also the chalice itself. Maybe that's straight up the First Blood. I have a problem with accepting the fact, right, that First Blood is distinctly an item. It just doesn't sound right, but let's continue. I think literally everything we saw, all those people that we saw are the Duskblood, Bloodsworn. They're Bloodsworn playable characters that we can choose. Again, like I said, there are a total of 12 that Miyazaki said, a dozen he said specifically. So it wouldn't surprise me if almost all of those are straight up just characters that we can choose to play with. And for what it's worth, I mean, I think we even see a scene later on with this female. We see a scene later on with her, and, I mean, obviously this guy is definitely, the jetpack dude is definitely. But also her, there's a scene later where she kind of lifts people up, magic style or gravity style from Elden Ring. So yeah, I think these are all playable characters. Duskbloods, Bloodsworn. Duskblood is the collective term of Bloodsworn, but anyway, besides the point, right? I also wrote here that like they could potentially be NPCs, but I mean, maybe this guy. I think if anyone would be an NPC, maybe this guy in the world, right, that we can talk to. But I don't know. Yeah, it's really hard to say at this point. I have a feeling that this will be a Duskblood as well, a Bloodsworn. Yeah, I'm leaning more towards the fact that these are all playable characters, which. Yeah, I mean, you can even take a peek at Night Rain. I did a video about Night Rain pretty recently, but the Nightfarers, the playable characters that they're called in that game, the Nightfarers are also NPCs that you can talk to in the the Round Table's hold. So it wouldn't surprise me if, like, say, 8 of the players choose a certain Bloodsworn in Duskbloods, and the remaining 4 can be found in the overworld of some kind, and in the world of some kind. So, yeah, interesting. Interesting tidbit. Anyway, let's continue. There's literally that frame right there I wanted to stop at. In the interview, Miyazaki mentioned these match variables, right, that I talked about. Match variables where the world will be directly impacted environmentally with altered match rewards. This feels like world tendency without the added baggage, which, yeah. You can even say on a small level, it's kind of like player invasions, right? Like a match will happen in this sort of event, which we don't really even know. He just pointed to this as being an example. But this kind of event might be a lot like invasions, player invasions in a way, from like the Dark Souls series, where all of a sudden you're just invaded and you're kind of like, what the hell? I have 1 flask, right? I'm screwed. Interesting too that this Bloodsworn is here. Curious, like, I wonder if she's associated with this event, this match event. Anyway. So, this is another Bloodsworn, clearly. Yasuhiro Kitao, I believe? Yasuhiro Kitao, the FromSoftware lead. PR lead for FromSoftware. Put up a picture of this the other day, right after the interview, actually. No, sorry, not this exact picture, but I'll put it up here. But yeah, he got me pretty hyped because it's like, I mean, look at this. This guy looks so sick. This guy looks so cool. I don't know. It's tough for me. I don't know who I'm going to be playing as already. There's a lot of really cool imagery, a lot of cool characters I could see. Like, even we'll see later, like the guy that can turn into a dinosaur. Like, what the hell? All right. Seconds after this. All right, so Another question I had, right? I'm curious seeing is one of the Blood Sworn, I keep messing that up, Duskbloods. One of the Blood Sworn characters has the jetpack, right? The guy that we saw with the jetpack, the steampunk dude. I'm wondering if, like, each of the characters will have their own varied ways for traversing the maps, right? Like, yeah, I'm curious if, like certain maps might be even better designed for certain Bloodsworn. Maybe some Bloodsworn are straight up from that time period or that era, because there's different eras that we go through, and I'm curious if maybe there's different ways for us to get around, or again, maybe they all can jump like this. Maybe they all have the ability to jump, or there's a way to add this on via the Blood History Fate upgrades that Miyazaki was saying. There's a lot of ways that they can go about this. So post-edit EPS here, and I totally missed this whole section right here on the second page of Miyazaki's interview that says, and I quote, "Even basic character actions in this game, such as sprinting, super jump, and double jump, are designed to be dynamic and stress-free, and are complemented by each character's own unique weapons and abilities, allowing for a wide range of creativity." Does that mean each character has different ways of traversing? I don't know, but I guess the idea here is that sprinting, super jump, and double jump will be designed dynamically across them. It's not very clear, but yeah. Anyway, back to the regular EPS. More vampirism elements, more of the clear references to things like Bram Stoker's Dracula. And so my my theory is that this specifically is another role. I'm thinking that this could be called Destined Hunger, right? We had Destined I'm not gonna remember. Destined Friends, right? The Sunbros and the Destined Rivals, where you had to fight people, PvP based. I'm wondering if this is more NPC versus NPC based, right? Destined Hunger requires you to maybe, feast on a ton of NPCs, maybe even players maybe give you better victory points or something. Yeah, literally getting drunk on blood, like we see in Bloodborne. Interesting. I don't know. I like it. Yeah, I want to stop right there, so we even get a kind of like red mark. See that? So, I didn't mention it in the gameplay part, but as in Elden Ring with Spirit Ash summons, Duskbloods will also have similar summoning functionality. Miyazaki says in the interview, each Bloodsworn character can summon an entity to assist in combat, giving players a high degree of freedom when it comes to how they fight and win. Kind of cool. Again, these people bemoaning the fact that it's multiplayer really just need to take a step back and reassess, because I really don't think it's gonna be play against you, if that makes sense. We'll get into it.
Close your eyes and contemplate now the moon, as befits the soon to depart.
I love the dialogue in this is so good. Let's play that back and listen. I'm sorry, there's no captions, so you can't hear what she's saying or see what she's saying, I should say. But close your eyes.
Rise and contemplate now the moon, as befits the soon to depart.
I pray that you are...
This is another great line that's coming up here. But I wanted to take a second here. Guns. We got the return of guns. Another reason why I think Bloodborne is very much like Bloodborne 2, very much talked about in reference to this game. These look incredible. Like, come on, like this is like a submachine gun. He's got dual-wielding submachine guns, I think. Like, what the hell? I'm still curious how they will function in game, like during matches. Like, right? How do we get bullets? Do we craft them? Do we have a set number when we go into a match? There's a lot of questions I have in regards to how the guns perform too. Are they gonna be overpowered? It's tough to say. Tough to say. But I wanted to also... Werewolves confirmed. Werewolves are confirmed. I mean, you can't really have a vampire story based around vampires. Vampires without werewolves. They're kind of like going hand in hand in a way. Sort of. Listen to this. Listen to this, too. Like, this is a great line as well that he says. Very much like Blood, Father Gascoigne energy he's got. Obviously, Berserk. You know, you can see the Berserk references, too. He's massive compared to our character. So, listen to his dialogue. It's kind of interesting.
To depart.
I pray that you are able, carrier of blood.
Ooh, okay. Perfect timing. Perfect timing. So, I pray that you are able, carrier of blood. Interesting line there. Like, what is he talking about? Able to fight me? Able to win? Able to get the first blood? Able to reach the first blood mantle? I'm assuming this is a boss, not necessarily a Bloodsworn. It could be even a Bloodsworn that transforms, right? I mean, we have a dinosaur guy that transforms. So, but I'm thinking more. I'm leaning more boss. Like this feels like a boss, like a maybe even like a match event that Miyazaki was talking about. Maybe this is something that we all have to come together to fight. That dialogue just so sick. The dialogue is so sick. I mean, also wanted to like Berserker armor. Anybody? Berserker armor? Come on. Oh yeah, I was stopped there too, and I have notes here. So it looked like he was blocking, or like this guy was See that? See how he's blocking with his gun? Looks like he's blocking with his gun. It also kind of looks like how the Dark Wraiths block with their red. They got that red shield, you know. It reminds me a lot of the Dark Wraith shield. I'm curious if, like, you know, how that'll function. We see it like guard break, right? Guard break, so we kind of get cooked. I wonder if we took a bit of damage. So he's got a gun, kind of like a submachine gun, and a sword. Yeah, it's another great character. Great character. And also, I wanted to point out his necklace here. I wonder if that has any significance. I wonder if that has any significance, really, in the context more of the narrative, not necessarily gameplay. But, yeah. Scene that I wanted to stop at here. We got another Lady Mariah clone. Love it. Love to see it. Another Lady Mariah clone. Gotta have a Lady Mariah clone. It's not not an online multiplayer focused Miyazaki made game without Lady Mariah coming in. But swashbuckler sword looking thing, and also got a horse looking like Shadowmere. Very much a Shadowmere look-alike. Again, this goes into what I was saying about each character have different ways of traversal, maybe. Like, this is her way of traversing in this world. Yeah, and then it's the dinosaur guy. Dinosaur guy. This is going to be sick. This is going to be real sick, I think. A lot of people are going to love this. This has got to be a Bloodsworn character. And I think this is like the only time we see them. I'm assuming they'll have transformational abilities as opposed to this being, you know, a player upgrade that we can, you know, what did a Blood Fate type of thing that we can move across characters. I think this is for this Bloodsworn. But yeah, I guess, again, I have no idea. It'd be kind of cool if we could do that across characters. We could kind of like the, the Dragon Stones from Dark Souls 3 that you can use. It uses MP, I believe, and you transform into a dragon. Yeah. So this looks like that character that was in front of the moon. Oh no, it's actually the one with the chakram we'll get to later. Huh. Definitely a Bloodsworn. I keep wanting to say Duskblood. This is another frame I wanted to stop in. This is an odd shot. This could be the dinosaur guy. We don't really get a good look at him before he transforms. No, I don't. Maybe not. Maybe it's not him. But I also have a feeling this could be that Father Gascoigne / Blythe mix-up guy, the werewolf. Like, maybe it's the werewolf. Yeah, I don't know if this is a blood swarm. Maybe it is. Maybe it is. Again, there's dozens, so I don't. Yeah, I'm leaning more towards this being an NPC that turns into a boss later on of some kind, right? We get the white hair here. Yeah, I'm convinced that this is if not the werewolf, we've already seen a different werewolf boss of some kind. It just gives me that impression. Yeah. I personally love these weapons. These are so freaking sick. These are called chakrams, by the way. Chakrams are kind of a circular blade, usually a bit smaller than this, actually. Always brings me back to this scene, dude. If you're a big Yu Yu Hakusho fan, I don't know if you're a big Yu Yu Hakusho fan, but I don't know. Very different, obviously. It's much smaller, but yeah. Anyway, we don't have to sit on this the whole time, but it always reminds me of that. The chakrams. Cool. Very cool weapon. There's that character again that was sitting in front of the moon, right? The moon that we saw earlier that does gravity attack. It looks just like the gravity attacks from Elden Ring. Come on. This seems more of our mage-esque character. Or arcane, if you want to do Bloodborne. This seems very much like the magic-based character, where she doesn't even have a weapon. She's kind of like Ezra from Ahsoka, right? Just uses the Force. Kind of cool.
The moon tears will flow for one, and one alone.
Moon tears will flow for one, and one alone. First of all, what are moon tears? We don't really know. We don't know what moon tears are. Maybe it's just saying that kind of be a dick, like you're going to cry. I don't know. That's just my assumption. But I also wanted to stop again and talk about the handprint that he shows. I don't think this is a boss that we fight. I think this is another Bloodsworn character that we face. And not only that, but I think that what he's doing is showing, hey, I'm a destined, destined rival, right? I think that's what this is. I'm destined rival, let's fight. It's time to fight. Because again, I don't think the Moon Tears dialogue stuff has anything to do with this scene. It's just a dialogue that they tossed in. But I could be wrong. I don't know. I could be wrong. It's very much a different description than what we saw at the very beginning of this trailer, right? Like it's much smaller, less distinct. It's just like kind of a bite. It actually might have something to do with, again, being the first blood. Might have something to do with the first blood. Who knows? I mean, there's so much we don't know about this game. There's just so much we don't know, and it's exciting. I'm sorry, I'm gushing. I'm sitting here gushing over just a random frame in this trailer, but I'm going to probably be destined rival. Let's be real. I love PvP, so that's gonna be me. I'm gonna be destined rival. That's my role in this game. Let's continue.
And one alone.
Duskbloods, hell yeah. So in the interview, right, in the interview with Nintendo, Miyazaki mentions that this specific character is our Firekeeper. I'm trying to think of the one from Demon's Souls. Essentially, this is the character that will be at the hub world all the time, that will give us our upgrades and stuff like that. I'm assuming that's their purpose. Not sure. It's a vast departure from previous games, primarily because, we've seen them mostly as females. They've always been females, really. Even in Elden Ring, with Melina, right? Melina, I think her name is. Miyazaki even says, like, we tried doing something a little Nintendo-esque, I think. So he did this mouse and angel-looking thing, which is kind of funny, right? Kind of cute, actually kind of cute, which is not even, like, I'm not even being funny in saying that. Like, he literally says, we tried something cute for a change. Like, what? But despite saying that, he said this character is actually an elderly gentleman. So I don't know, man. Dude likes feet. Curious also what the runes here mean. It kind of looks like they're bound to this world, right? They're sort of imprisoned in a way. Yeah, it's interesting. But that's it. I mean, that's it. Let's get out of here. Let's get out of here. We've seen enough. We've seen enough of this. With the trailer and interview out of the way, what am I thinking overall about this game? I'm probably still hype. I'm properly stoked even, more so than I was initially when I first saw the reveal. I'm a huge fan of this art style, these time periods, right? Most of all, you know, I'm really stoked for the PvP action. I love PvP. I'm also a Souls purist, and that comes with a negative connotation in a way. But no, seriously, like, I'm a Souls purist in that I'm of the mind that multiplayer makes the experience whole. Everyone's all up in arms about Duskbloods being multiplayer, but it really is. It's been a core experience of the Souls games in my mind, and in my opinion, maybe is a better way of saying it. Like, I was talking to some people with colleagues at work, and they were like, "No, like, I always turn multiplayer off," and it's just, you miss out on so much, you know. You really do. Like, I've always considered the true Souls experience, right, as one with multiplayer invasions and co-op. But I'm not going to knock those who turn off multiplayer functionality. I get it. You know, you want to get away from that, you know. If you want to play the game as a single experience, that's fine. I just think you're missing out on a whole lot of shit. You're missing out on a lot that has to, like, the game has to offer you. Whether it's douche invaders, right, coming to, you know, kill you right at the beginning of the map, right at the beginning of the game. Which happens. Like, it happens. People are like over level and they come and kill you. Or, right, you have the people, the trolls, I should say, the trolls that drop dung and just bounce, or even like they'll drop like a sword that you won't get to the DLC. I remember playing Dark Souls 3 with my buddy. His first time playing Dark Souls 3. Obviously, this is after Elden Ring for him. This is after Elden Ring, and we jumped in. It was like right there at Lothric, right at the beginning. We got invaded by some guy, and you know, he was freaking out, and I was like, this guy, he's not fighting us. He bowed. He was kind of chill. He drops like the Demon Scar and other like crazy weapons for him. It's just, it's not always a negative experience, and I think that's the problem I have with Elden Ring. In fact, I think Elden Ring gave people such a bad taste for multiplayer because it's just so structured wrong in that game. It incentivizes ganking, which I think is just a poor way of implementing it, personally. There's a great op-ed published pretty recently by Edwin Evans Thurwell. I hope I'm saying that right. Edwin Evans Thurwell in Rock, Paper, Shotgun, titled FromSoftware Multiplayer is Best When It's a Secret. Great title. And in fact, I agree with that title. And it's a great op-ed. One of my favorite lines from that entire article: to play Dark Souls is to be haunted by everybody else playing it. It's said so eloquently, and it's true. You don't just get that feeling of playing a game, being haunted by everybody else, right? You don't get that feeling just from the ghostly figures that walk around you, but you also see it in the notes that litter the ground. You know, a lot of these, I get it. Well, some might be useless, right? Or straight up, you know, death-inducing. Like the ones that are like, you know, try jumping right at cliffs, which I find hilarious. And I think, like, if you're really the one that's gonna just jump, like, come on. Like, it's more on you than the note, I think. But anyway, I find the notes, I find the multiplayer, I find it all. Even the invasions that are annoying, it's all sparks of wonder. You know, they're specifically in terms of the notes, right? The notes have helped me a ton. And even the bloodstains of people dying. You know, you turn off multiplayer, you don't get all that. You lose it all. There are so many times where I've read a note and it's like there's a boss ahead, or an imminent invasion, actually. One time I think I read a note and there was like, oh, you're going to get invaded here by an NPC. You turn off multiplayer and you miss all of that. And you miss a lot of the wonder of Dark Souls. The fantastic originality to it. But the asynchronous nature of it definitely helps. And the fact that it is, in a way, you know, toggleable. You can turn it off. It's tough because as someone who loves the Souls, like they're a core part of my upbringing in a way, right? They helped me through a tough time, Dark Souls, and I don't know if I'd get the same experience out of it if I didn't play them in multiplayer. Yeah, that's my 2 cents. But anyway, but at least for those who do turn off the multiplayer, right, who reject it entirely, it's not like multiplayer games are going to be a major focus at FromSoft. Miyazaki clearly did state that the company isn't shifting to a more multiplayer-focused direction. He even goes so far as to say that we still intend to actively develop single-player-focused games, such as Elden Ring, that embrace our more traditional style. Ooh, what you got up your sleeve, Miyazaki? So again, like, traditional Souls games aren't going anywhere. Looking past the whole multiplayer elephant in the room, though, I think we can all appreciate the dedication on offer here. Look at the level design. Look at the game design. Look at the arts. Like, the character design, dude. Like, this game is dripping with such fascinating coded iconography, with elements that scream Castlevania, Vampire Hunter D, Van Helsing. Obviously, Berserk is also adequately represented here. The Duskbloods is going to be a fascinating new experience for us all to enjoy. Like, yeah, together and against one another. I know that's not quite what you might be looking for, right? But man, let Miyazaki cook. Let him cook. Has he steered you wrong ever, besides maybe Deracine? Maybe. I mean, one thing the Duskbloods does have going for it is the adoption of a "the" in the title, which hasn't been seen since the adventures of Cookie and Cream. I miss them so much. On a serious note, though, we're in for a crazy experience. We've got a long wait ahead of us, right? 2026, oof. And more than enough to tide us over in the meantime, including, Night Rain, Death Stranding 2, GTA 6. That's just naming the top few of the most important releases, for me at least, this year. Plus even Pokemon, the wild games that are coming to the Switch too. Mario Kart World, Donkey Kong, I mean, I don't know, there's so much that we could be pissed about, and yet you guys are complaining about multiplayer on a Switch 2 title. That's not even out yet. I think we can all take a breather and relax. The FromSoft multiplayer game isn't for you, and that's okay. But me, well, I'll be getting my rivers of blood properly sharpened as the moons cycle onward, inching ever closer to the twilight of humanity. Taste for the first blood grows. Don't drown it.